Before I get started, Mason, just wanted to say thank you to you and the OneMob team for having me today. I'm super excited to be here with you guys and share my best practices with everyone in attendance today. So I would actually say that my first sales job was actually in retail, working for T-Mobile as a sales consultant. During my stint, I actually did everything from face-to-face sales to eventually actually running my own store, leading a team of about 10 reps. Now, that was a great experience because I was actually able to learn so many things along the way that really set the foundation for my career, right? So fast forward a couple years from that point, I decided I wanted to expand upon my love for technology by pursuing a certificate in cybersecurity. At that point, that really solidified my journey into tech sales. And from there, I actually became a channel manager for Barracuda Networks. And it was here where I learned all about channel operations, partner ecosystems, and really how to conduct business in more of a formal setting. And all of that essentially led to me being recruited by IBM. So here I am today as a digital seller in storage. Yeah, no, that's great. So simply put, I do want to say that digital sales, all in all, is a totally different beast. And although similar in some respects, it's not as black and white as some of the other sales environments that I've worked in the past. But I will say, as a digital seller, the number one thing that I tend to prioritize is time management, really just to protect my time as a seller. I really do make an effort to put blocks on my calendar to ensure that roughly, I don't know, anywhere from 70 to 80% of what I'm doing during the day are activities that are actually driving revenue without distractions or interruptions. So to kind of walk you through a day in the life, for example, let's take Tuesday, right? Today, for example. So 9 to 10 a.m., I typically like to call leads that I maybe didn't hear back from the prior day. Once that's completed, I typically shift gears from 10 to 11 and hopped on LinkedIn to send personalized connection requests to those same people. 11 to 12 is typically what I like to dedicate to non-revenue driving activities. So here I just typically catch up on what's happening in the market, engage with people on LinkedIn, or even just get a quick workout in, right? Just to keep the juices flowing. I am a big advocate for self-care and believe a lot of sellers should be doing this more often. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out. But from 12 to 1, I like to refuel and grab some lunch since most people are probably doing the same thing anyways. And once I do actually get back from lunch, I'll dedicate that next hour to internal meetings with my local team and or field teams, really just to touch base and talk business strategies about my territories. This can include everything from, project updates to territory planning. And I find that it's a great way to build rapport with the people you work with without sacrificing productivity. So from 2 to 3, I'll jump right into customer related activities such as demos or discovery calls. 3 to 4, I typically like to clean up my inbox just to ensure I'm not going into the next day with any unread or outstanding emails. But I also find that this is a good time to make any updates into my CMR for projects that I'm currently running. And then finally, 4 to 5, just simply hunker down, begin to map out, what needs to be completed for the next day, build myself an action list, so to speak. Really in no particular order. Some of the tools that I've just had success with would include, the likes of Zoom Info. Specifically Zoom Info, what I use that for is to help me identify any leads with buying intent. I also actually set up an automated workflow with inside Zoom Info. So that way it actually emails me a list of new leads every week based on the search criteria that I have saved in Zoom Info relevant to my ICP, which is ideal customer profile. Another tool that I like to use is LinkedIn Sales Navigator, really just to cross-reference any contacts that I pull from Zoom Info, but it's also a great way to get information that you can leverage for personalization. You can really learn a lot about a person based on what they're posting to LinkedIn. And I would highly recommend a lot of sellers, maybe use that feature a lot more, just to craft those emails, craft those phone calls, those first touches to really connect with that person you're trying to reach. So LinkedIn Sales Navigator is great. It's essentially an extension of your primary LinkedIn account or your profile, right? So if you have a license, you should be able to access it. And in there, you have several different resources like InMail, for example. But what's cool about LinkedIn Sales Navigator is it actually provides insights and analytics based on the person's company, their recent activity on LinkedIn. And then it actually includes a buyer intent score based on the information that they're clicking or engaging with on the social media platform in LinkedIn. So it's just kind of a culmination of different areas within Sales Navigator. But the best part about it is when you click a company profile, it's all listed out on that page. And it's just a matter of picking, what information that you want to dive a little further into. And then I guess outside of those two tools, I like to use Salesloft to really just accelerate my outreach. It kind of keeps things organized for me and lets me know, what needs to get done today in order to stay efficient and productive. Salesforce, obviously, just to stay organized. That's primarily like our CMR, right? Where we just go in, we make our updates to our projects and just kind of keep track of things and the flow of things. And then, of course, OneMob, actually, for video bumps and brand recognition. I will say personally that video is one of my personal favorites just because it makes up for the lack of in-person interaction and really allows me to fully display my personality, which in turn actually accelerates the ability to build that trust and rapport with prospects and really does bridge that gap that we typically come across as digital sellers. Without going like too far into detail, right, and not sharing too much, I will say that incorporating a digital strategy definitely has helped me see success in this role. Thinking recently, I actually revived an opportunity with a prospect who we were having a hard time connecting with, right? Email wasn't working, the client wasn't returning any of our calls, and it really did seem that the opportunity was lost. So as any digital seller should, I just essentially just took a step back and reevaluated what tools I had at my disposal that I could potentially use to bring life back into that deal. Eventually, I did connect with the client on the phone, but even then you could tell that we just needed to do more. They weren't really quite in a position to commit to us yet. And that's when I really decided to record a one-to-one video so I could showcase my personality to the client and convey how committed I was to actually helping them solve their problem. I actually took it one step further and crafted a nice little short, I would say about 5-slide PowerPoint that really pulled it all together, because to me, I think the modern buyer wants their process to be simple and as convenient as possible, right? So as a result to that, the client actually requested a quote almost immediately after receiving that video, and even provided us, additional insights we didn't ask for. So as you can imagine, it really sets us up for a bigger win later in this year. And if not for my digital tools, I think this deal might have been lost entirely. Salesloft is great, especially if you have the ability to build out your own cadences. And I'll say that it does take a lot of trial and error and experimenting to really find what's going to work best for your approach or even your personality as a whole, right, as a seller. And Salesloft is a great way to stay organized because, again, right, throughout your week, there's so many different things happening all at once. You're juggling all these different tools, these deals, and then, of course, meetings. And by building out that cadence and putting those steps in to align to those activities that you have blocked off on your calendar is a great way to stay productive and disciplined and stick to that schedule, right? So that's why I love Salesloft, because I can integrate, video bumps into my cadence via Salesloft, or today's the day I need to send initial touch points. And then, a couple of days later down the road, it's time to make some phone calls, whatever the case may be, right? And like I said, there's no silver bullet here. It's just a matter of finding what's going to work best for you and then sticking to it for at least, the next 30 days or so. First and foremost, do not go into any first call or first touch trying to sell them anything, right? I think the goal here is to try to establish some kind of relationship with that person to get them to a point to that first discovery call, right? So your goal should be to try to actually work with that person, bring value to the table, explain to them, hey, I understand you're going through a problem. A lot of your peers are experiencing the same thing. I just wanted to check in with you and see if this is something that you're also dealing with. And if so, would you be open to a conversation about it, right? And that's a great way to segment into a bigger discussion, which is typically that next call, aka your discovery call, right? And that's when you start to dig into the portfolio a little bit and start to unravel that value even more. Video is a great way to do that. You can't really go wrong with picking up the phone either. I think that's a great way to cover ground. And if you do decide that you want your first touch to be an email, again, you have to make sure that it's speaking to a relevant problem that they are facing, whether it's in their role or in their industry. and speak to that problem and convey that you actually understand what they're going through, right? People want to work with people they trust, but they also want to talk to people that understand the position that they're in, and want to know that at the end of the day, I have somebody in my corner that's willing to help me solve that problem in the most efficient manner possible. First off, manage your time wisely, but more importantly, protect your time, right? Do this by blocking off your calendar, and then stay disciplined by sticking to that schedule. And of course, don't be afraid to say no to meetings that aren't relevant to the task at hand. I think we can all agree that meetings sometimes pop up out of nowhere. And before you know it, you're going 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, and it's just like all meetings, right? And that's the last thing that a digital seller wants to happen. So protect your time, and it's okay to say no to meetings that aren't relevant to the bigger picture here. I would say just leverage your tools, right, in your tool belt, and try to take a multi-channel approach when you can, especially when prospecting to leads. I think the more unique touches that you can put out there, the better off your results are going to be. And especially if you stay consistent, right? That's the key. And then finally, I would say just be authentic and stay true to who you are. Control your own narrative and try to genuinely connect with the people that you work with, especially your prospects, because I will say that they can sense when you're not doing that. And that alone can damage both your credibility and your reputation as a seller. And that's why, as a digital seller, if you are going to pursue building your own personal brand, that I want to emphasize that you always should try to bring value to your network and your audience. Because you never know who's out there, who's watching. And the best place, believe it or not, to actually find leads is if you post is in your comment section, because if people are adding insights and they're commenting and they're engaging with your post, in my opinion, those are warm leads, and those should be people that we try to start conversations with outside of the platform. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. It's the only way that you're going to, one, get comfortable doing it, but two, like Mason said, have that foundation to start building your brand as a seller, right? Some of the best things come from awkward moments or uncomfortable situations, and if we embrace it, it's a beautiful thing. So I would highly recommend anybody who's maybe hesitant to do that, just take the leap, jump on in. The water's warm, and if you have any questions, I'm here to help.